I feel like I'm not going to talk too much smack, but just knowing our financial situation and kind of
No, I'm
getting to
ready.
say, you guys, dude, you guys had some close ones, but you couldn't beat us.
No, no, no. And that's yeah, no, we can touch on that because I talked to Coach Rivera Manny, and I was good friends with him, you know what I mean? So we had a good rivalry and yeah, we can touch on that stuff. I
Yeah.
want to talk about your guys' perspective of what you guys thought going into the matches and kind of what we were thinking and see kind of both sides of the story.
I mean, for me, like I think my perspective was maybe a little bit different than some of my teammates. Like I love it. And I feel like it was just I think it was what we needed, right? And I think if you look at both of our towns, like the Fresno area and the Bakersfield area, Fresno overall has been kind of kicking our butts across the board. And I think we weren't just kind of representing our universities, but we were representing our towns, and that's kind of how I saw it. And the I wrestled Kincaid actually a couple times in high school, and then we wrestled each other twice in the duels. And that was something where it was like, at the time, like maybe it was a little bit personal,
Yeah.
but it's funny. So I talked to Josh Hokett quite a few times, and I talked to Israel before too, and it's kind of like you think they're a certain way until you actually kind of talk to them. They're like, oh, they're cool dudes,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and they were saying that Kincaid's kind of the same way. It's like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like I competed against him. Like I don't know if I could be friends with him. But they're like, no, he's a cool dude. So I'm sure he is. But I always thought our duels were fun, especially coming and wrestling against you guys um, at your guys' arena and having that place packed out and a lot of people cheering against us. Like I always thought that was fun.
No, it definitely was a rivalry and we never beat you guys and we would come off big wins versus Wyoming or these other schools and stuff like that and then we'd go against Bakersfield and I think on paper we probably should have had the advantage, but we always went in there and you guys just had a little bit more fight than us. Yeah, man, like the 50-50 matchups, you guys would win. We would win the ones we were favored at, and you guys would win the ones that you were favored at. But when it came to the 50-50s, you guys would win, and you would beat us. I felt that we're the new kids on the block, and we're getting a lot of
Yeah.
buzz and getting a lot of publicity, and doing well recruiting, and we got a lot of fans and stuff like that. So it's like, hey, man, I felt that you guys, hey, we're Bakersfield. We've been here before. Like we've been around. Like so I felt like you guys kind of had a little chip on your shoulder, and you wanted to take it to us, which was good. I think it meant for great competition, and those were awesome duels. And like I said, my relationship with Coach Rivera, it was an awesome one. And we would joke around and stuff like that. But no, we knew that we had to be game against you guys, and you guys always brought it. Even when we went down to the Roadrunner, we'd wrestle you guys in matchups, and it'd be, our team's on the sideline, your team's on the sideline, and Ducharme versus Ryan Reyes and all that stuff. So it was a lot of good matchups, up and down, So it was an awesome rivalry. I'm a little bummed that it's no longer and Fresno State's not here, but no, the Bakersfield Fresno State rivalry was good for California.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just with, I think our perspective of kind of like how you said, I think our team's culture was we are going to be tough. We're not necessarily the most talented group, but we're going to be scrappy. And I think with you guys, you're kind of trying to reestablish a culture that historically has kind of been there. Obviously took a hiatus, and then you guys are bringing it back, and you guys are having the talent. It was just like, all right, how do we get these young guys? Kind of putting them in those intense situations where they are going to be challenged and being able to push through that. It does suck that you guys weren't able to continue to build that. And I'm bummed about that, man. Like I'm a fan of wrestling first, and I wish that could have not happened and we could continue to have Fresno State wrestling. And I know there's kind of been some rumors kind of like here and there. I feel like the last couple of years that there was a chance that it was going to come back. I'm not sure exactly, how much ground that's kind of been running on, and if that's something that I don't know if you've heard anything different.
I've heard that, but being on the inside and knowing that the people that decided to cut the program are still in leadership at the university, not in the athletic department, in the university. I don't feel that there's a chance unless that leadership completely changes. I don't see it happening. Um, Even to the point where, we were blindsided where they didn't let us know, like, hey, this is a possibility. Finance is this enough. And we have really good boosters in Fresno and, that support the program. And they were never once approached like, hey, can you guys help, raise money? Can you guys help do this to save the program? That wasn't even discussed. That wasn't even discussed. And it was just made, the decision was made. So, like I said, that leadership is still at Fresno State, running the university. So unless that changes, I don't see it happening.
So they said it was a financial issue. It wasn't like Title IX. It wasn't like we're going to drop this other sport, so we have to drop you guys. I mean, for me, that's a load of malarkey, man. It's like you're saying it's financial. That was kind of the same thing that I feel like happened with Stanford.
No,
It's
yeah,
like we're gonna.
but at Stanford, they gave him the opportunity to, raise the funds, so
I don't think it was initially. Like it took like a lot of arguing and like protesting and to make it where it's like, well, why? Like we're let us have the opportunity to do that, and it's crappy that you guys didn't have that chance.
no, and we definitely have these supporters with Coach DeLito and the Zinkin family and other families that, and the network of people that, we could have brought it, or we could have been, hey, we will be self-sufficient. We'll run, whatever we raise, that's what we operate. Like, give us that opportunity. They didn't even give us that opportunity. So they didn't want to have it. They didn't want to have it, in my opinion, which was, BS because the DNA of the Valley, the DNA of Fresno, Clovis is wrestling.
Yeah,
These kids grow up wanting to be wrestling. And in the few years that we had the program, we had a top 20 recruiting class, top 10 recruiting class, and it was all Valley kids. It was all Valley kids, and I know at one point there was 8 guys at the NCAA tournament for other universities that all were on the Fresno State wrestling program at one point. So we would have had in our opinion, the trajectory we had with the recruiting, with the way that we were training them and our RTC, we would have had a top 15 program year in, year out every year with homegrown talent.
yeah. I mean, you have some of the best wrestling schools in the state that are in your backyard, and not to mention the youth programs too.
Yeah.
With Dethrone and Red Wave, it's like,
Yeah.
man, like this could be possibly a linear line structure from youth wrestling all the way through college.
Yeah. And you would have had, season tickets sold, you know what I mean? Because the Valley
Mhm.
was supporting. Like it was on a way of being self-sufficient program, you know what I mean, with all those things and some of that. And like I said, we were blindsided, and then nothing was communicated. There was no talks about it. Hey, this might be a possibility. It just happened one day.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I know something kind of similar happened with Boise State, where I think Mendoza might have gotten like a text or an email, like, hey, we need to talk about something. And then I want to say their compliance officer walked into the wrestling room. This is like right before practice about to start, and start passing out like transfer forms. And they're
Yeah.
like, what the heck? Like, what is this for? And they're like, oh, we're dropping the program.
Yeah. And the things that people don't see, that behind the scenes is kids that, we had like Jacob Wrights. I mean, he went into Wyoming, had an awesome career. We had other kids transfer, Kyle Parko, when they see those success stories, but they don't see the kids that were in our program that, that were real good. And I don't want to mention names, but it took him years, and some of them haven't even recovered because they don't have the wrestling, they don't have that community, they don't have, the culture and the coaches, to support them, to get them through college and graduate and stuff like that. Like that was lost. I mean, and those very unfortunate where these kids didn't finish school. They didn't like they didn't end up how they should have. And it was because of the program was dropped. You know what I mean? And that's what people don't see is for the 5, 6 guys that transferred and had really good careers after, there was probably 24, 30 kids that, really struggled with not having that identity or that identity getting taken away from them, and struggled to even finish at Fresno State or graduate college, where we would have had them graduated, we would have guided them through the rest of their lives and, been part of it and then made sure that they got that degree. And that's the most important thing to us, always has been, is that these kids, use wrestling to get ahead in life, get a degree, and be able to get a good job and provide for their families.
As a comfortable, I feel like as it is to say, I mean, wrestling more and more has become like a business, on the collegiate level, and I feel like for, I don't want to say smaller programs, but like out of maybe like the larger programs, the rest of the schools, I feel like they do continue to try to have that more family environment where it's like, we want to kind of include you in this network. We want to make sure that you are graduating, you are getting the help and the support that you need. Why I feel like you see this now with NIL and transfer portal stuff, and it's been talked about a lot. But it's like, if you're not producing, if you get injured, if somebody is looking to transfer, that's a high level recruit, we're gonna go and get them, and you're kind of left at just in a spot where it's tough, and I think when you take away programs like Fresno State, where it's like, yeah, we want to win, and winning is a large part of it, but we want to win the right way, and we want to make sure that this is also going to be something that's going to give back to the community, and it's like you're taking this huge resource away from the people of Fresno, and not just Fresno, but Central Valley, California, and beyond.
Yeah, and you want to win, obviously, but you want to develop good people.
Yeah.
Good character people. And that's when we recruited kids. That was the thing. That was what we told them. And that's what it was, is we're going to treat your kids like their own. We're going to love on them. We're going to discipline them. We're going to have accountability to them, but they're going to grow and they're going to be better men, leaving our program, and that's missing. And, the big programs and stuff like that, I think, kids and parents have to understand and be realistic of where they're at, in the wrestling. Like, everyone wants to go to Big 10 or Big 12. It's like, do you have the commitment that is needed to be at those programs? You know what I mean? Or do you just want to get a graphic that says that you went to this big school that has traditionally good football and good basketball, but, they don't have good wrestling? It's, the Little Rocks, the Cal Polys, the Bakersfields, the CBUs, the Wyomings, the Utah Valleys now with Coach Adam Hall. Like, those are all great options with great coaches that will develop you as the person, and all of them have high accolades in wrestling, and they all can develop. You give, Adam Hall, Utah Valley, Penn State's lineup, I guarantee you can win a national title, so kids have to be honest in their assessment. And I'm getting that, now as my my boys are growing up, and I'm trying to say, like, well, where do I see them, going to college, and, what do I look for, and what do I want? I'm evaluating those things, and having my oldest son at West Point now, and he wrestles, and he's with Kevin Ward, and he wants to wrestle. He wants to be an All-American. He puts in the work, but he also wants to set himself up beyond wrestling, and he made the decision to go to West Point because of the career that it can give him. And he made the decision, and he was thinking 10, 15, 20 years down the line, and not just, a cool graphic that he went to, a Power 5 school.
Yeah. And Army is a good place. I mean, I got to know Steve Weiss a little bit too. He's an assistant over there, and Kevin Ward actually recruited me a little bit when he was at Ouachita Baptist before Army. Seems like a super good dude.
No, and Kevin Ward is the man. I mean, I've known him since I was at Tennessee Chattanooga. He's a Tennessee kid, but he knew my son when he was born. But I trust him. I mean, I know all the coaches in Division I. I know how everyone operates, and I 100% trust what he's doing with my son. I never call, I never interject, I never ask anything. I let him do it. Do what they do as coaches.
And I like how you said, he's thinking not just, what's the next 4 years or 5 years, but 15, 20 years. I mean, you get a degree from Army, like, you're going to be set up with a job right away that pays well. You're going to be an officer. And then if you want to continue to be in the military, you can do that. But if you want to do anything else, you're set up, man. You went to West Point.
That network that you get, and I had Coach Ward at one of my camps this summer, and he laid it out great, and people say, oh, you go to the academies, you got to serve in the military for 5 years after you graduate. And he said, no, that's not the case. You graduate from West Point, and right away you have a job. You have a job for the next 5 years, in the United States Army, that most kids graduate from 23 years old, and you'd probably attest to this. You graduated, like, did you know what you wanted to do? Did you have a job right away at 23 once you graduated from Bakersfield? Like, no, it was a hard world out there. You had to figure out what was next, and at West Point or at the academies, you for the next 5 years, so you get a job at 28, you can be out, or you can go back in, but you're a little bit more ready to take on the world at 28 than you are at 23.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point too. For me personally, like I think going through I graduated early and I got put into like a teacher residency program, and I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and then I took that program. And was like, maybe I don't want to be a teacher. This is
Yeah.
actually pretty hard. But thankfully, I was able to be kind of pushed through that. But I think it's like that is something that you have to take into consideration. And when I was looking at schools to go to, like I knew I wanted to teach history. What's kind of the best fit for me? And it just happened to align that Cal State Bakersfield had, really good education programs. And I knew the wrestling was good in Bakersfield. And it's interesting because kind of if I would have gone to, let's say the other schools I was looking at, I might have ended up in, Minnesota or North Dakota. And then my entire life would have been different.
Yeah.
But now it's like I'm in a cool, a cool place where, I can raise a family and I can afford it and I have a good job. And, I have that network still that I'm able to kind of access. And I think that's awesome. And that's something that I think kids, it's hard to, I don't know if you agree or disagree with this. It's hard when you're 17, 18, 19 years old and be thinking about 10, 15, 20 years down the line. I feel like that's uncommon with a lot of kids I interact with.
Yeah, I have a good group that I work with now, and they're rising juniors. They're getting recruited, and really, you have to educate the parents as well.
Yeah.
A lot of them, this is their first time their kids getting recruited and stuff like that. And I get kids all the time like, "Oh, this school called me," and I was like, "All right, that's awesome. Like, who's on their coaching staff?" You know what I mean? And they don't know. Like, well, like who's at the weight class that you're going to be at? How have they done at that weight class? You know what I mean? I ask them questions and I tell these kids, you have to educate yourself. You can't, like I said, I think a lot of kids make the decisions based on what the brand looks like, and they
Yeah.
don't do their research. So I challenge the kids that I work with to like do your research, do your homework. You know what I mean? What about this? Does this fit your style? Do they have a coach that, they emulate? I was talking to a kid the other day and he's like, "Oh, Coach Dresser called me." I was like, "Oh, that's great." You know what I mean? And this kid's going to be a junior. And I was like, "Oh, I think Brett Metcalf will be great for you." "Oh, who's that?" I was like, "You don't know who Brett
Oh,
Metcalf."
man.
I was like, "You don't know who Brett Metcalf is?" I was like, "Are you serious?" I was like, he was like, if social media was around or as popular as it is today, like he was a stone cold killer. He was the best. He was running people and like he was the man.
Yeah.
That's who their coach is. And that's who you'd work out every single day. So I right away sent him like YouTube highlights of Brett Metcalf. And my young boys are wrestling savants, and that's where I try to teach them. And my twin boys, they're right-handed, but from when they very first started, is I had a lead left leg.
For the
And
high crotch.
yeah, from the very beginning, I
Yes.
wanted them to emulate Brett Metcalf's style. You know what I mean? Because my boys were born in '09, and that's when kind of, Metcalf was at his highest, that 2008 to 2012, cycle. And I wanted my boys to be like Brett Metcalf, So I was shocked that they didn't even know who Brett Metcalf was and that stuff like that. But like I said, that Iowa State brand looks good on a graphic. So that's why they wanted to, they're interested in that school.
Yeah. It's kids are, it's just like you put something shiny in front of them and it's like, ooh, like that looks cool. I want to go do that. It's like, but why, man? Like, or like once you get there, I mean, then it's like, all right, now you're here. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
It's like, are you okay with maybe you're not the starter right away? Like, are you okay with that? Or do you know what you want to study in school?
Yeah.
Like, do you feel like you're getting the support that you need there? And that's something that, I looked a little bit at kind of what your position is with Iridium. You're a recruiting, is it director of recruiting? Is
Yep.
that kind of
Director of
your
collegiate
position?
recruiting. Yep.
Yeah.
So
So how does that, I guess your experience with that position, like how does that kind of tie into maybe what you see it? Because I know you're coaching still as well, right? So you're kind of trying to do both those things.
Uh, so my main job is I'm the director of operations at Meathead Movers.
Got it.
We have a location in Bakersfield, so that's my
Yeah.
main job. That's I oversee 5 locations in California. Kind of the executive level there. That's my main job. And now with wrestling, I'm the director of collegiate recruiting. With Iridium, and then I help out at Red Wave and help out at Buchanan a little bit with their freestyle program. So now my involvement in wrestling is more of what I want to do in the sport. So no longer is it, something that I need it to provide a living for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's more of like with my network, that I have in the country and some of that. It's how can I help people with the sport?
Yeah.
So with Iridium, how it started is obviously the best fighters in MMA, are wrestlers, and the Iridium Sports Agency is the largest combat sports agency, in the world. We have 130 guys in the UFC. We have over 300, 400 clients. We offer all these different things. So um, right now we have about 12 guys on our roster that are currently in college that will transition to MMA. Kyle Parko, we just signed Younger Bastida from Iowa
Nice.
State and Anthony Chimendia. We have, Alex Facundo, Josh Barr from Penn State. We had David Taylor. We still have David Taylor. We have all these guys that are going to transition to MMA. So when the NIL came, there's a lot of things thrown around, and kids really don't know. So we're not paying these kids, but we provide a service. So we can go out and find them sponsors, and especially if they have a good following, good profile like Kyle Parko, it's easy for us to get them, sponsors and cash sponsors and some of that. But also some of these guys that are getting large sums amount of NIL money, like we're teaching them how to manage their money. So we start their LLC. We teach them about taxes. We teach them how to invest. I mean, I was like, hey, if you're getting, $130,000, well, we should look into buying a house. You buy a house, you might live in it, but then you can flip it. Now you're having equity. Now you're kind of building a portfolio. So we kind of work with all those things, and a lot of and kind of how to make your money work for you. So we provide all those services. Or if a kid is getting approached by somebody, hey, they want us to do this is how much they're going to pay us, send us over the contract, and we'll have our legal team look at it, and we'll kind of make sure that these guys don't put themselves in a position that's long term that they might be able to get taken advantage of. So that's how it started. That's kind of our main focus with Iridium Wrestling. And then I started our camp series. And our camp series is we want to give back. So with our NIL guys, I developed a national camp series where I'll use those guys and they can make some money in the summer, and also give back in wrestling. And now we're promoting Iridium Wrestling. We're also giving back to the community. We're providing opportunities and stuff like that. Like Iridium makes zero. We've had camps that, have over 300 kids, and Iridium takes zero money off of that. We pay our athletes very well. We write a donation back to programs that we do that. We're kind of just building and giving back, and I love it because I get to hang around high level wrestlers. I get to be around youth wrestlers and provide, an avenue and stuff like that. And who knows, in 10, 15 years, we have this guy that's in college. I remember I went to your Iridium wrestling camp, 10 years ago, and now he's one of our clients and he's fighting for UFC world title. That's the end goal, so, and that's kind of my passion. I love teaching. I love coaching. I love giving back. I love providing opportunities. So now, like I said, I get to do wrestling at the capacity that I want to do it. And I don't have to, I make a good living, in my full-time job. Now everything that I do in wrestling is just to give back. Now with the Iridium camp that we had in the Valley this summer, I invited 6 Division I head coaches, and I said, hey man, you want to get in front of some of these kids in the Valley and stuff like that. So now, I built a good network of Division I coaches that, want to be part of Iridium and stuff like that. So now if they have a college guy, hey, I'm thinking about fighting. Hey, let me put you in touch with Izzy and Iridium, they'll guide your career. So it's kind of building the network of college athletes, Iridium, athletes, college coaches, stuff like that, and kind of just helping everybody. Same thing with recruiting, now these college coaches, hey, tell me about this kid, tell me about this kid. And, or I'll tell them, hey, I know you guys don't really know about this kid, but this kid's really good. Like Dave Calkins from up Sacramento area.
Yeah, I know.
I knew how he was because he's my twins age, and we were on schoolboy teams together and stuff like that, and he was really good. And I probably text David Taylor, Little Rock, all these different coaches. I was like, hey, Dave Calkins, you guys don't really know about him. He's a freaking monster. He's
He's a
good.
freak.
and he's going to be the man. And then he had a really good Fargo, and so being able to help Dad, because Dave Calkins' dad, Big Dave, is he's
Yeah.
awesome,
Yeah.
and he's been really good to me. So I was like, let me give back to Dave and his family, and let me open up doors for them to have more opportunities. So I love that. I mean, if I can lend a hand and give information or connect this coach with his athlete, stuff like that, and this kid gets a scholarship and he's able to get his education paid for, like that brings great purpose to me. I don't care about money. I don't care about anything like that. Like if I can, the people that I have around me, and if I can help them get ahead, like somebody helped me, like that's all I'm about.
Yeah, and I honestly, I really like how you were talking about the financial literacy element.
Yeah. Yeah.
As an educator, that's something that we are kind of missing in our schools is that financial literacy part. And I love my mom, but she didn't really teach me too much when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I feel like that's kind of similar, I think, with a lot of kids. Like if your parents don't really know that stuff, you kind of have to figure it out on your own. And I think being able to have somebody that's going to kind of guide you, I think is great.
Yeah.
And we'd send some kids up to your camp. And I think one of the cool things about it is like, yeah, you can, I think wrestling has kind of evolved to where you can learn wrestling a lot of different ways, like learn skills, especially with the internet. But the reason that, I mean, for me, like going to a David Taylor or Adam Hall or Kevin Ward or wherever these camps is you get to interact with them. Like you actually get to see them, you get to talk to them, and you get to interact in a way that's like, we can watch an interview with David Taylor, but until you kind of stand next to him and talk to him, it's like you can kind of get a vibe from him and kind of get like, what is he really about? And then when it comes time for the recruiting process, it's like you already have that interaction, that past interaction with them. And it kind of maybe can kind of help build that trust just a little bit sooner, which
Yeah.
I think is so important in collegiate wrestling.
And that was one of my biggest goals with the camp that we had, this year is, there was a lot of good, up and coming rising sophomores, juniors here in the Valley. And that was my goal. I wanted to help my colleagues, my former colleagues, from Little Rock, Adam Hall, David Taylor, West Point, all those schools, like get to know these kids, get in front of them. So now when it's time to pick up the phone or bring them on the recruiting visit, you already have those, uh, interactions with them. You know what I mean? So they've kind of, you don't have to get to know them, or you don't have to pitch yourself, or you don't have to talk about it because you've already been around them. And that was one of my biggest goals, and also for these parents too, because they were able to ask questions, to these clinicians and stuff like that. And a lot of camps, when you bring these high profile names, it's wrestling's wrestling. Anybody can teach wrestling, So when you bring in these high profile names, it's kind of a meet and greet. You're paying for a meet and greet,
Yeah.
But these Division I coaches, those all head coaches, Chris Pendleton, they wanted to be here. They
Yeah.
wanted to be in front of the kids. They freaking brought the energy. Like the camp was probably one of the best camps I ever ran. It was first class. It was efficient. But these coaches like were grateful to be there. It wasn't a chore for them to be there. Like they wanted to get on the mat. They wanted to roll around. They wanted to ask questions. They wanted to meet the kids. They loved it. You know what I mean? So that's what I appreciated. The people that I bring out, they're good people. They're good men.
Yeah.
They're great coaches, that's why I tell them all the time, because they're recruiting some of our kids, is these coaches that I brought out, the people that I associate with, they're great coaches, but they're great men first, and they will guide your children. They'll make sure that they become better men as well.
I mean, that's how I think about how you measure a good program. Like if I have kids, what I want my kids to go and compete for them and go
Yeah.
and be a part of their program. Like, do I trust them? It's like they're going to kind of help be their support, especially if they're away from home. And it seems like I think with your past interactions with a lot of these guys is you kind of already know them and you've had interactions with them previously, so when you're bringing them to a camp, it's like you're only bringing good people. You're not bringing guys that are I don't know, maybe don't necessarily have the highest morality, but
Yeah.
you're for sure these are good guys. And yeah, I think that's cool that you're exposing the Valley and also California to these guys that maybe
Yeah.
you normally wouldn't have access to.
Well, that when I was coaching, you know, you represent the university. You know what I mean? You represent the university, like that's number one. And everything you do is for that. And if I was still at Fresno State or another program, I'd be selfish and I'd only be recruiting these kids and I wouldn't want them to have access to all these other options.
Yeah.
Now I have my only skin in the game is to help people, help kids, help coaches. So different kids are different fits for different programs, so it's like, but everyone can go somewhere, so I try to help that or, I get parents text me, hey, what do I need to know? What questions do I need to ask? Hey, they're doing a home visit. Like, what do I do? What do I present? Like, hey, this is what you do. And then also at the same time, educating them on the NCAA clearinghouse process. Hey, make sure we're registered for the clearinghouse. Hey, make sure you're taking these classes. Hey, make sure you're doing this. Hey, make sure you're on track. Hey, what's your GPA? All right, your GPA is this. What schools do you want to go to? Well, your GPA doesn't align with the schools that you want to go to. Like, we need to pick it up. Those type of conversations, because I never had that afforded to me. I had to go the junior college route first. So now it's like I don't want those opportunities to be missed because of things that could have been prevented.
Yeah. I think looking at kind of just how you kind of build this camp. This was your first year doing the camp like this in this particular way?
No, this is my first one doing it in the Valley.
Okay.
I have a really big one up in the Northwest. That's where I'm from. So I have one
Yeah.
in Seattle. That's big. We did Colorado, but this is the first one in the Valley. But and then same thing with my leveraging my contacts and my network. I called Christian Piles at Flow Wrestling. I was like, hey, you want to be out here? You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
want to be out here? You want to cover in this camp? This is the first time David Taylor is going to be on camera since he took the job. Adam Hall is going to be here. All these guys, you're going to have free content. You have all these good recruits that are going to be here. And so Christian Piles like, yeah, we'll have people out there. I was like, I'll pay for their travel. I'll pay for their stay. Bring them out here. Let's get content. And I don't know if you saw the content or not, but
Oh yeah.
it was awesome for the coaches because I was like, hey, I want a one-on-one with every single coach, talk about their program, give Adam Hall a platform to talk about what he wants to do with Utah Valley, give David a platform of what he wants to do. So the coaches are getting there. Hey, interview these kids. These are all top 100 kids, give them interview, get content of the camp. But at the same time, you're seeing Iridium wrestling all over the place.
Yeah.
So now the agency is like, oh, what's Iridium? What's Iridium? I don't know how many conversations I had at Fargo. Hey, what's Iridium? Oh, hey, next year we want to come. So, and it also gave Flow Wrestling content in the middle of the summer.
Yeah.
So everybody benefited from all this. It was just kind of my brain of like, let's bring it all together.
How is this something that you feel like you're going to try to replicate next year? Or is it something that you feel like, we can kind of grow this, maybe add to it?
No, we want to grow. And if people feel like, obviously Fresno and the Clovis area is wrestling hotbed. So we get people asking, hey, we want to do one here. We want to do one here. Like, if it makes sense, let's do it. Let's do it. And like I said, it's beneficial for everybody. One, we're getting opportunities for our NIL athletes to make money and to give back. It's bringing exposure to whatever school or area we go to, but then also it could be a fundraiser, for the program that's hosting it as well. So we're open to anything. We want to make it big. We want to, keep providing opportunities. Like, there's no limit to it.
Yeah. I think for me, it's because I love doing projects, man, especially if it's something that I think is going to help wrestling in our area.
Yeah.
When people start coming up to you and they're like, we want to be a part of this, or I'm sure you've had people that have given you ideas. How do you kind of, I don't want to say hold yourself back, but just be like, all right, I just got to make sure like you pace yourself, because if sometimes it's like, I don't know, for me, if I have these grand ideas and I want to do everything right away, sometimes it can be a lot, and I want to make sure it's still good without compromising, because I'm adding so much more to it.
I kind of prioritize doing business with people that I want to do business with.
Yeah.
So like I said, I only want good people around me. Good people that are in it for the same reasons, as I am. If you're in it to give back, if you're in it to give opportunities, let's do it. So I want people that have the same love and passion for the sport and for people as I do. So that's the number one thing. And obviously timing and when do you want to do it, where do we want to do it, and stuff like that. But if our vision is aligned and our goal on what we're trying to accomplish is aligned, then that's who I want to build long-term relationships. I don't want it to be a one and done. I want, hey, this be a reoccurring year. I want a long-term relationship, and stuff like that. And like I said, all the people that I brought out to the camp, like Javier Maldonado and Coach Erzman from Little Rock, those have been my buddies for, you know, Javi's been one of my best friends for 20 years. We went to college together,
Yeah.
so, and then Neil called me to ask me about Javi before I took the job. And then even with the Little Rock program, through all their struggles, we went through the same struggles at Fresno State. So I kind of mentored them. Hey, keep your heads up. You guys are doing the right things. It's going to pay off. It's going to pay off. And then boom, they had an explosion this year. And, we're beating, Arizona State, beating Oregon State, had, 2 All-Americans, stuff like that. And every single dual meet, every single victory, I'll be the first one to text those guys. So that's why I bring them to all my camps. I mean, because I love those guys. So yeah, in building it and what I do in the future and what we do and some of that, number one, I want to do it with good people, good people that I want to be around, good people that I want my kids around, and that's number one.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. One thing that, for me, I love camps, and I did the JROB camps. Actually, the last year that they had it as a counselor. And I don't know how well you know Chad Hankey.
Yeah.
I want to say he was around when
I coached
you were
him.
there.
I coached Chad, yeah.
Yeah, he's a colorful guy, but definitely passionate. And it was cool doing that camp with him. And it was interesting just being around a bunch of different kids from all across the country, different different, I guess, levels of talent, but all of them just hardworking kids that kind of had their own challenges that they've kind of had to go through. And I feel like going through something really hard with something that's challenging. Because if you're a counselor, I mean, you're doing the runs with the kids, like you're doing a lot of workouts with the kids. I feel like you're able to kind of build this relationship that, is uncommon. And I feel like it's really common in wrestling. Have you guys ever thought about doing some kind of intensive camp? Because J-Rob's gone. There is some Perler camps that are happening, but I feel like the intensive element of some of these camps, I think is probably the best way to kind of replicate collegiate wrestling and that kind of training. But I just feel like really in California, there's only really a couple options. And I think, I don't know, is that something that you guys ever want to kind of progress towards, or do you feel like that's something that
no, definitely
kind of where we're at?
I work the J-Rob camps too. I mean, and I've been around.
It's so fun.
Yeah, I love the J-Rob camps. California's hard as far as like camps and stuff like that, especially in the Valley. Like Red Wave's open 24/7, 7 days a week. I mean, you have D-Throne, you have, DC and stuff like that. Like camps are good, but it's hard to like really break through because there's so many good wrestling options every single day.
Yeah.
And like for me, I was a Red Wave kid, want to come to a camp that I run personally because they see me at Red Wave 2-3 days a week. You know what I mean? And they don't understand like what my name is outside of the wrestling room, where, people ask me to fly different places to do camps, so definitely interested. I'd love to run an intensive camp. I think we will move to that. I think, hosting it, like I would love to do it like at a Vanguard, where they have arms, they have the facilities and same thing with them. Like we can give back to that program and we can help them out, you know what I mean? Or another, place like that. But yeah, I definitely want to do an intensive camp. I love those intensive camps. And we ran a really good one at Fresno State, when we were here.
I did. Stanford had an intensive camp when, Borelli and Ray Blake and Alex Giarpelli were there and coaching. And it was cool because it was like Nick Muchastegui and like Zach Geeson and Ryan Mango, like all these guys. And what's funny is Lucas Espericueta was there. And I actually bumped into him because he lives in Shafter. And I kind of fanboyed out a little bit. And he was like, dude, like, okay, but I was like, man, when I was in high school, I'd go to your duels and I went to your camp and I actually had a poster of all you guys on my wall. And that had a pretty big impact on me because, I'm kind of learning how to train at a higher level. And then I got to have access to these high level college athletes and kind of try to pick their brain a little bit. And I feel like I'm not sure if I would have wanted to go to college if I wasn't around a program like that or been going to those camps.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I had the same impact, growing up and different people I looked up to did camps and stuff like that. So it does bring a positive impact on kids' lives, you know what I mean? And when you're a camp counselor, it's hard, because you're with these kids for like a week, 10 days, and you get to know them, and the next thing you know, they're gone. So
Yeah.
like there's a little void there. Like, man, I used to mess with this kid every single day. Now, they're gone. But it's also too running into people at tournaments or Fargo and like, hey, I did the J-Rub camp with you. I did this camp. Oh, I went to your, even at Fargo, I saw probably 10, 12 kids wearing Iridium wrestling shirts as they're warming up.
Awesome.
And that's great too. So I think there's so many possibilities with the Iridium wrestling camps, and we're always going to have new guys on our roster. We're going to keep evolving. Guys are going to transition, some of that. So I think, possibilities are endless. And I'm excited about that.
I had a question. We were talking a little bit before we started recording about kind of like the dad element. When you're a father, you have sons that wrestle. How do you kind of balance, I guess, being the dad but also the coach kind of at the same time? Because for me, I've talked about this kind of quite a few times on the show. It's like I feel like I'm going to be okay with it, but sometimes I kind of question like whether or not how directly involved I want to be in the wrestling or not.
Yeah, it's I've been kind of trying to wrap my mind around it on what I've done and what I've done leading up to it. But when the boys first started, I think they're 14 now. I think they were about 5 and 6, and they started at Red Wave. And I wasn't their coach then. I was coaching at Fresno State, and I was busy. I always had them in the environment. I always had them at my practice, or they're always around it. So I kind of wanted them to have a love for the sport. But early on, and I give a lot of the credit to the boys' success now to Coach Damani Buckley. Damani?
Yeah.
He's probably the best person that I've ever met as far as developing somebody from nothing into elite. I can't do that. It takes a special talent of how to communicate, how to get these motions and these techniques to stick. And he's done it time after time. Like our Red Wave room from K through 8th grade is probably one of the best in the country.
We brought some kids in there, and we found out real quick. I was like, man, these guys are so tough.
And that's his window, and he knows that. Like that's his window. He's like, once they get to like high school and 9th grade, like he's done what he could because these kids, mature and they have different outlook on life, and they have more like influences and more distractions. But K through 8, Damani Buckley is probably one of the best in the country. So he's the one that really developed my boys, and the techniques and stuff like that. Even like when they were first started going and we started traveling to like different tournaments, stuff like that. Like I didn't know the terminology that they use. I know that what I used at college and stuff like that, but it wasn't the same. So I'd freak out, like a new dad that didn't know the sport. Like, hey, coach, we're on this mat, make sure that they were there. And as they got older, probably from like 11, 12 to right now, I've kind of taken over, not taken over full time. They still go to Damani and they have their other school coaches, but I kind of more focus on the spring and summer. Freestyle is my passion, So yeah. I tell my boys all the time, like, our goal isn't to win a high school state title. Our goal, and you ask them, like, why do you wrestle? They say, we want to make world teams. We want to make world teams. That's their goal. That's always been their goal. So as a dad and the knowledge of wrestling that I have, I'm able to fix technique in real time. I don't need to have a private coach. I don't need to, wait to practice. I can take them in and make adjustments, on the fly. Or I can be at home. We can be watching film. And that's what I teach them. I teach them as their dad and coach. My main role is to teach them about what it takes, as far as commitment into the sport to be successful. I teach them about nutrition. I teach them about recovery. I teach them about, watching film. I teach them about all aspects of that. That's kind of my main role. And I want them to be driven by the process and love the process, enjoy being at practice and enjoy training more than they like are driven by, the results and the success that they have, so that's kind of my role. I want them to have a higher level of intelligence for the sport rather than like, oh, we're training for Fargo, we're training for Tulsa, we're training for this. I know we're just training. We're just trying to get better. And we're trying to peak for certain tournaments, but it's not, the end result. So my role as a dad, as a father, what I've tried to do is get them to love the sport, and
Yeah.
also like have their goals be like not what everyone else's goals are. Let's have goals that like, and you've heard it, have goals that scare you, have goals that like are different than everybody's goals, you know what I mean? And I don't know, we oftentimes, I don't know if we get criticized or whatever, but like the boys want to be world champs, you
Yeah.
know. Are they there yet? No, but are we working towards it? Yes. You know, I mean, they're the next year they'll be first year 17U. Like they want to make that 17U world team. You know what I mean? And that's what we're training for, and that's our main focus. They want to wrestle the world stage. And if we're doing that, then everything else kind of falls into place. So my role as a dad is I want them to be all around well-rounded wrestlers, not just seasonal wrestlers, not just they do this, and like the boys love sitting in the sauna. They love going, lifting weights. They love doing power cleans. They love going on runs. You know what I mean? And I also have a great network of people that it's not all me.
Yeah.
I don't take all the credit for my kids. I give them the environment. I give them the vehicle to have it. But before Fargo, they went 2 weeks to Illinois by themselves. They flew by themselves, and they're with my best friend Israel Martinez, Izzy style. They were there for 2 weeks. I mean, they go to all these different places, and whoever wants to help them and invest in them and teach them something, they soak it all up. So my 15 years of Division One coaching experience, and helping with Team USA, and all that kind of stuff. Like, I have a network that I can like use to help my boys get exposure.
I think what is most important is, like how you said, their love for not just the sport of wrestling, but like I'd say the nature of the sport, like all the extra stuff, the nutrition part, the recovery with the sauna, the weightlifting. Like I love wrestling. I'm not gonna lie though, I hate running. Like I'm not super into lifting, but I can be in the wrestling room all day. I think it takes like your boys are uncommon. Like that's not like a common thing. And I think what you said about goals is having goals that scare you. I'm sure probably parents or other coaches probably say stuff, why are you making your boys do that and things like that. But it's like it sounds like your sons just are different. And it's like they're not going to be the same as some of these other kids.
Yeah, and like I said, my buddy Izzy, he's over at the Olympics with Kennedy Blades,
Yeah.
and he probably 4 years ago he asked me in front of the boys. He's like, "Hey, boys, you guys have passports?" Because he travels all over the place. And he's like, "Do you have passports?" And they're like, "No." They're like, "Your dad doesn't think you can make world teams." And right then, it's like, yeah. So like, all right,
Got him.
touche. So yeah, I mean, it's Izzy. I was coaching college for a long time. Izzy's been, one of the best club coaches in the country for a lot of years now. He's had NCAA champs, he's had world team members, with Tony Ramos, he's got Kennedy Blades, he's got all these people. So he's done it. So I really lean on him, like on his advice, and the running, no kid likes running, but they heard it from Uncle Izzy. You should be able to run 3 to 5 miles, 2, 3 days a week. So
Yeah.
Uncle Izzy told him that. So they hang on that, every word. So now, not dad didn't tell him that. Uncle Izzy told him that this is what other high level people do, and then they went to Illinois, and he said, "You guys need to start swimming. You need to start swimming, and add that to your, conditioning." So the other day, we have a community pool. They did 20 laps. I mean, so we incorporated that, and they loved it. So it's fun. I mean, we kind of messing with the recipe. We're tinkering and stuff like that, but it's always like, are we still moving a little bit closer to our goal? And will they make a world team? Who knows? I mean, maybe not. I mean, will they win a world medal, some of that? But why not train to do that?
Yeah.
Why not give it all? I mean, like, we don't care about, making the high school lineup. We don't care about, winning state as a freshman. Like, we're going to be there, in some capacity. Let's not focus on those things. Let's focus on, being that. And, also I work with Brandon Moreno, former UFC world champ and stuff like that. And I have the boys around that. I mean, they're around Kennedy Blades as she's preparing for the Olympics. So they're sitting having lunch with her every single day. And she's talking about, how nervous she is for the Olympics. She's talking about her preparation. They're doing the runs with her. So it's like they're around Olympians. They're around world champs. You know what I mean? And it kind of normalizes thinking like that or being around people that have already done it, because hey, these guys are normal people just like we are. So
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Like they go through things like being nervous for a big event. Once you win something, it's like how do you start, I guess, training for the next thing and being able to expose to those higher level athletes that are going through real people emotions. You
yeah,
know, I think that's really good for their development. And I think it's kind of like what you said. It's like, all right, maybe they get an Olympic medal or win a world medal or something, or maybe they don't. But I think the skills and the mindset that they get along the way, and I feel like it's kind of cliche to say it, but it's true. It's like that's what they're going to be able to take with them the rest of their life, and they're going to be good people regardless of whether they have a medal around their neck or not.
no, and man, my boy's double All-American, and Taos has a big stop sign and stuff like that. It's tucked under a chair. Like he didn't put it up on the
Yeah.
wall. Like every single medal that they've won, everything that they've done is like it's just part of the process. Like we enjoy it. We're happy that the hard work, there was something, that to show for it and some of that, but it is an end result. Like they interviewed, him after he won the US Open and Fargo, and they're like, well, how do you feel? You just won a, national title. And he's like, oh, it's just part of the process. They're like, oh, like what, how do you feel? Like, oh, it's not the end goal. And that's, well, what's the end goal? They're like, I want to win world and Olympic medals. At 14 years old, he's articulating that, what I mean? And that's what's in his heart, what I mean, to say, at the time. So yeah. And it's not always a great day. They fight me,
No,
they get attitudes, what I mean? They're
they're
down. And
teenagers.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
remind them like, hey, if your goals have changed, that's okay. Let me know. If your goals have changed, then I'll change my approach. I'll lower my standard expectations. I'm totally happy with that. But if they haven't, then this is what it looks like. What I mean? So there's constant reminders. They're still kids. They're still 14. Very grateful, where they're at and their love for it. But they could be shitheads still. No doubt about it.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. It's like, cause I coached from the youth all the way through high school, and you interact with kids. It's like, I forget sometimes that they're teenagers and they'll say like, oh yeah, like I totally did that, or, oh, I'll be there. And then when they're not, like I get sometimes a little bit too fired up, and I have to kind of calm myself down before I approach them and be like, hey, it's, how come you weren't there? I thought your goal was you want to be a state qualifier. I thought your goal was, you want to be a state champion. You got to be able to show up and do the things that you're going to do. Otherwise, you're not going to reach those goals. It's
Yeah.
just trying to get them to understand that. I feel like it's tough, especially if I'm not around them more. Like if I was like their parent, I guess from that perspective, I guess how do you get them to kind of be kind of on their own in the sense that they're able to hold themselves accountable for some of those things that they need to do in order to kind of help them reach their goals?
What we do is we have a training plan. What I mean? So let's say we're getting ready for Super 32 or Fargo. Like we'll do an 8-week training plan, and we have it all laid out. Like it's visible every single day. So we plan it out. I mean, we're very thoughtful. Like, all right, these are the days you're going to wrestle. You go to this practice, this practice. These are the days that you're going to lift. This is the lift. This is the run. This is your recovery day. This is the day we sauna. So it's all laid out, and it's kind of an agreement. Like, all right, this is what we're going to need to do in order for us to be our very best for this. Cool. All right, we're good. And they hold themselves accountable. I mean? Like, hey, this is what you said. And to me, even with my son at West Point, my kids do very good with structure. If it's
Yeah.
all laid out and it's all visible and they can see it, like he'll do 20 workouts in a week. But if you say like, don't give them a plan and then it's an impromptu, hey, you got to get up and do this, that's when they struggle. So, I get them to think, here's the training plan. You know that you're going to be beat up on Wednesday, but Thursday is going to be recovery day. You're going to have 36 hours of recovery, and then you don't have to get up Friday morning. And then we have some Saturday. So approaching it that way, then the kids do it. And even now, I can text them, hey, this is what I want you guys to do in the garage, and they'll do it. I mean, and they like it. Even like with their weight cut, they both cut about 10 pounds for Fargo, which is a lot for an 88 and 94 pounder.
Yeah.
But it was, 3 weeks out, what I mean? And every single day they have checkpoints that they have to hit, when they wake up and when they go to bed, and it's just a descent, to make them feel good. And then same thing, I get them to think like, hey, when you have to make weight in Fargo 3 times, I mean? All right. So you can't really make weight and a balloon back up to 10 pounds. You know what I mean? So you can probably only put back about 3 to 4 pounds. So the week prior to Fargo, for the 88 pounder, you're going to come into practice at 91, 92 pounds, 3 or 4 pounds over. And you got to know what it feels like to wrestle at that weight, because that's the weight that you're going to compete at. You're not going to compete at 95. You're going to feel great at 95 because you're fully hydrated. So you got to know what it feels like to wrestle a full practice and execute at, 3 or 4 pounds over, because that's what you're going to wrestle at. So talking them through those things, like they understand it, and don't treat them like little kids. You know what I mean? Treat them like professionals. And give them, have them buy into the process.
Yeah, that's the part. It's like trying to get them to kind of buy into that part, and I think it's kind of different for every kid. And that's what for me makes coaching fun, is trying to figure out what motivates a particular kid and how do we help them reach the goals that they say that they want to, or where they feel that they're capable of being.
Yeah, and to me, it's easier, when you have a coach, you're also relying on parents doing the right things at home, and also providing the right nutrition at home and the right structure at home. You know what I mean? It's hard. Like, I feel my kids are at an advantage because they have me at home, and they have my wife was a college athlete, and she was a state champ as well. So we're all on the same page. So they're at an advantage a little. It's a little bit easier for them to do that. There's kids that often don't have that support at home, and the only real guidance that they have is during that practice time, and it's hard for them to let their parents know, hey, I need to do this, this, and this. So I do feel my kids are at an advantage having me at home, and being able to get the grocery list that they need, to be optimal and stuff like that.
It's hard coaching the parents,
Yeah.
And I think it's something that when I first started coaching, is like I try to do that right away. And it was kind of like, you're young, like, yeah, you were a Division I wrestler, but like, you're not a parent and like that kind of stuff. So I kind of had to reevaluate my approach. And I think it just goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's those relationships. It's like I put in the time. Like I go in and I work out with kids in their garages, over at their houses with the parents around, and that way they see it's like I care about your kid. I want to help them reach their goals. And when I try to give feedback or try to interact with them where I'm giving some kind of advice, it's like, this is kind of what worked for me. This is what I think is going to help with your son, to kind of help them reach their goal. And I think when they sense that I'm genuine, I feel like it comes out a little bit different. And that's the big thing. It's like, I'm competitive and I want to win, but I want to help these kids reach their goals or pursue those goals and try to help them become good people in the process.
Yeah, we have a great group of athletes and parents at Red Wave. That kind of, we all lean on each other. I give advice, or I kind of gave a rundown of my experience at Fargo, and like, hey, we're not going to stay in the dorms. Airbnb is the way to go. This is this. Hey, thanks for letting us know. Like, when we go to Fargo, like, we're going to use that advice, to make sure that our kids are, ready to just worrying about competing.
The dorms are cool, but I feel like it's kind of like, we're limited during the high school season. Our district won't allow us to use Airbnbs. We have to be in hotels, which is fine. But I think when you put a bunch of kids in a room together without adult supervision, sometimes they stay up late. Sometimes, they're putting stuff in their bodies that they shouldn't be doing. And it just adds another stress factor, I think, for me as a coach. But also it's like, let's make sure we're going to bed on time. And, your boys might be good, but if they get roomed with somebody that maybe isn't, that's like another influence that the men have to kind of deal with.
No, and they're boys, and they're going to be influenced, and it's that. I would never even think to send my boys to Fargo without me. I see, like, because it's that important to me and that important to us, where it's like, Fargo's only one time a year. You got to make sure that everything's right. And the same thing that I do with my college athletes. Hey, we got to go find a gym that has a sauna. We got to go do this. We got to make sure we're monitoring weight. We have the check scale, like everything. Hey, we got to run to the grocery store. We got to get them this, and this. Like, I saw kids cutting weight with plastics, running up and down the street, and doing that stuff. And I was like, man, this kid's putting a lot of stress on his mind and his body. And then you're expecting them to go out and compete optimal. Like, where my kids are, they're getting chauffeured around, Hey, I'm going to the grocery store, text me what you need, stuff like that, just relax. Like, everything's geared towards, like, I want all your energy to be focused on these matches, and it's hard, for kids to just go out there with without their parents and being in the dorms and not even a coach and stuff like that, like to expect them to compete their best.
It's like you've already done the hard work. It's like don't make it hard on yourself by, maybe you procrastinate a little bit on getting your weight down, or you made a bad decision when you're in the dorm and you put something that you shouldn't in your body. It's like now you're not focused on getting ready for this big event. Now you're focused on, doing something silly like running around at Fargo, during the summer with plastics on, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. So that, like I said, that again, that's why I feel that my boys have a little bit of advantage, and the boys that I have around my kids,
Yeah.
like we treat it like same thing if we're going on Team USA, what I mean, and we're our senior level athletes or our college athletes. Like you guys have already put all the work in. Now it's up as coaches, as parents, we do our part to accommodate you, and everything is like taken care of for you guys here.
I did want to talk a little bit about Fargo. I saw some of the bigger names do well. I first kind of want to ask you because I feel like every year we always see this really strong group of freshmen from different places come in. Were you maybe able to see some of our California guys that are freshmen that you feel like these guys are going to be tough when they come in next year? Or I guess what are your perspective on that?
I think the two top incoming freshmen, one was at Fargo and one wasn't, but I think the kid that probably had the best tournament, rising eighth grader freshman, it was Paul Ruiz. He'll
Mhm.
be, going to the Buchanan lineup at 113, took second, had a really good tournament, knocked off some really good kids and very close match in the finals. He had a position, where he could have exposed it and won the match. But Paul, I work with Paul, and Paul's a Red Wave kid, and I've seen the work that he's done, but his stock really rose. He won Super 32 as a middle schooler, but he was good. But going out there and making the Fargo finals now, like puts him top 12 in the country. He's coming in, and he'll be a contender to win a state title at 113. And then the other one was Sammy Sanchez, who's probably
Mhm.
pound for pound the best kid. And Sammy, is getting ready for win a world title, and he'll be a 108 pounder. But those are probably the top two freshmen. My boys, I'm going to hold them back next year. They're a little bit too small, to go into high school. So I'll be holding them back. So they'll be coming in another year. But Jax Bang, he won a few matches. But really, our second year cadets like Dave Calkins, like Ashton Besmer, like those guys had really really good tournaments. Those type of guys. Rockland Zinkin, also being on our 16U dual team
Mhm.
is the reason why we won a freestyle national title. Those guys they're young high schoolers. Dave and Zinkin and Besmer, like those guys are going into their junior year and their second year cadets.
Yeah.
They could be going into their sophomore year. So that state experience really helped us at the national level and had really good tournaments. But Poway did an awesome job. I don't know how many All-Americans they had, but they brought, 25 plus kids there. I think they had 14, All-Americans. Buchanan brought 8 kids, Gilroy, with Zepeda and Moses Mendoza, really good. So I think this is the first time in a lot of years that our best kids were at Fargo. Usually some kids stay home and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
this year I believe that Poway, Buchanan, Gilroy, and some of these other programs brought their best kids. It was a really, really strong team.
I think with as competitive as the state tournament is, I also think it's cool when there's opportunities for us as a state to come together and work together and compete in an event, whether it's a national dual team or whether it's competing at Fargo. I think that is special. I feel like it's kind of hard because our state is so big. It's kind of hard to find that kind of unity. But I feel like, hopefully for the kids, they feel that kind of pride when they go and they kind of represent our state at these different venues.
Oh, that like this is the first time ever that the 16U has won the freestyle national title.
Yeah.
And I tell the boys too, like, hey, like you guys are gonna be remembered, or you guys are gonna, 2, 3, 4 years from now, you're gonna be, oh, remember we won, cadet, national duels and stuff like that. So it's like, don't take it for granted, what you guys just accomplished, because it is a pretty special deal, So, I was able to be there and help out coach and some of that. So it was an awesome experience, and I know how hard that tournament is to win.
Yeah. I actually was going to do Fargo. I want to say it was my junior year. It was my junior year. And dude, I had like a really bad wrist break playing football. And unfortunately wasn't able to even try. I spent most of my junior and senior year dealing with that. But it was one of those events I always felt like, for one, I think all of those kids being from all over the place, I think it's just cool. I think experience for those kids, whether it's you're in the dorms or even just being around the tournament and getting interact with people from other places, I think is cool. I wasn't super into like the shoes and stuff like that I see like some of the kids are now, but the black market that's at Fargo, like I've experienced that. I don't know how into like shoes and like trading singlets and stuff like that your boys are in, but I don't know.
They're not at all, and that's by design. Like I said, who gives a shit? You know what I mean, about that stuff? Like winning brings you all the clout that you need. You know what I mean? Not what shoes, not what's on your feet, not what's anything like that. Like they knew, like, don't let me catch you out in that black market. That's not what our focus is. That's not what we're here for. You know, and other people are different. That's just my philosophy. You know, and I was like, don't be out there. You know, but there are some sweet shoes. I mean, there are some stuff like that. And also, my boys are fortunate where they have an older brother that's, you know, in college now, and we've saved every shoe that he's had as soon as he's outgrown it. So we have a bin in the garage of freaks, of all these different things that as soon as the twins fit into it, they have all these rare shoes, you know. And my son had a bunch of shoes that I had when I was competing that I saved for him so now he has them, you know, in college. So I kind of knew that it was going to be a thing. So I saved them, and so they don't have to go out and buy. And they're like, oh, we can sell these for these. I don't know. You're going to wear them. You're going to compete in them.
I wish I would have thought about that. I mean, I never really had anything crazy, but I like how you were thinking at some point, I'm going to have a son that's going to probably wear these shoes. So I'm going to save them.
I don't know. You can still do it now. I mean, like the shoes that you're buying now, by the time your son, you know, in 10, 15 years, you know, I don't know if you have a kid yet, but you will have a son, you know, 10, 15 years, save them right now, wear them a little bit, and then just put them in a bin.
My wife, she was a gymnast and she's petite. And I'm kind of the smallest of my brothers, but I have a brother that's like 6'4", 270. I got a brother that's you know, like 6'2", also like close to 200. All my cousins are big. My dad was big. I'm the smallest, but we'll kind of see. I'm not sure how big my kids are going to be, but I got huge feet, dude. I got size 12.5 shoes, which like, I don't know. I don't know. Part of me hopes is that they're going to be kind of close to my size so I can kind of wrestle with them. I know it kind of doesn't necessarily matter that much. But that would be cool because I could maybe feel not as bad because when I, you know, wrestle with them, it's not because you're bigger than me. But
I think what I do, like my boys are smaller than me, and I didn't really wrestle much with my older son. What I do, and I share this all the time, like when my boys are cutting weight, I'm in the sauna with them. You know what I mean? I'm not like dropping them off or I'm not sitting outside. And I see this all the time, parents, you know, and I critique them. I was like, get in the sauna with them. Suffer with them. You know what I mean? Like that's what my boys always see that. Or, you know, I enjoy lifting weights. You know what I mean? So when we're lifting, whether it be in the garage or I bring them to the gym with me a couple of times in the morning, I do the work with them. You know what I mean? And that's why I tell them, like, don't tell them what to do, show them how to do it. You know, and you know, be having the Division I background and stuff like that, like keep your body good. So then when you get to when you get there, like do the work with them because they appreciate you. You're suffering with them. Those are gonna be the memories, and that's the memories that I have of my boys that I want when they have their kids. Like, oh, Grandpa used to, you know, do the workouts with us. He used to get them up. Like he used to lift with us, stuff like that. Like those are the memories that I'm trying to build now. Not memories of like, oh, I drop them off at practice, or I make them do this, or I make them do that, but they don't see me do the work with them.
Yeah.
So I tell parents, dads all the time, like get in shape and do the work with them. I mean, they'll appreciate you more with, you know, doing it. And like, they can't really complain because you're doing the work with them, you know? So
it's not dad's making me do this. It's like, I did this with my dad. Yeah.
And that's the mentality shift that, you know, as fathers, we have to do. You know what I mean? You see these fathers that are out of shape and they get mad at their kids for not doing well. And they're yelling at them and stuff like that. And I'm like, you don't even take care of yourself. You know what I mean? Take care of yourself. Show them what good nutrition looks like. Show them what living a good lifestyle looks like. And then, you know, hold them accountable to it if they're not doing it. But if you're not living right and you're not, taking this nutrition serious, like how are you going to preach that to your kids? That's kind of my own philosophy that I've developed probably since I've been out of coaching. It's like, do it with them, suffer with them, cut weight with them, like, hold yourself back, while they're doing it and stuff like that. Even my wife will cut weight with the boys, you know what I mean, or portion of stuff with them, or she likes to run. She's a runner, you know what I mean? So when they do their 3 to 5 mile runs, she runs with them. I don't run. I'll lift weights, but that's the advice that I would give, parents, or people that have young kids, especially, like, do the work with them.
Yeah. I think it's easy for me to do that part because I do that already coaching. It's like when we do runs, I won't run all the time because I hate it, but I'll do it anyways because I hate it. And I think they know that. So when I run it with them, I'm competitive, and I try to beat them in the runs, and same thing with the lifting, and especially with the wrestling. When we're doing live goes, I get tired.
Yeah.
But I try not to show my signs because that way it's like we're going through this workout together, and it's kind of like that bonding thing. It's like that trust comes with that.
No.
I like how you said that about the parents, because normally it's like, you see those dads, or it's like, you need to go run, you need to lose that weight. But when I see that, it's like you're making your young son go and cut this weight. You don't even know what that is. Like, you never experienced that before. And I feel like it'd be something that would be good for parents to do if you are going to say, hey, we got to lose this weight or whatever. Appreciate what that means and understand what that means, and do that with them, for one, so that way you have a better understanding of it. But also too, it's like you're going to kind of help with that bond as well.
Well, and I think people often use the word, oh, you're going to burn them out. You're going to burn them out. And it's like, you don't burn them out if, like I said, you guys are in it together. You're going to burn them out if they're the only ones doing the work. If they're the only ones that you're making them do this, you make them do that, like, and you don't know what it feels like. You know what I mean? So, and also, if you have a passion for the process, there is no burnout. Like right now, the boys, right after they trained their ass off for Fargo, and then the Monday they got back, or we got back Sunday, the Monday, they're like, hey, can we go lift, with the team? Absolutely, go lift, because they love being around it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm backing off. The time off is the time off of the intensity of me, like every single rep, every single practice matters. We have to execute. But they're back in the room, 2 or 3 days, the week after Fargo, they lifted 4 days, and they just love being around it. So it's like, not like, oh, take a month off, take this much off. No, it's the time off is the intensity level isn't as high.
Yeah, and that's something that I see a lot with I don't want to say younger coaches, but guys that maybe haven't experienced that kind of way to kind of map out your year in terms of intensity and training cycles, is we're just going to train hard all year, or we're not going to do anything in the off season, and then we're just going to start training hard. It's like you're not really preparing your body, I think, for what it needs, and you're not really giving it time to rest. Like, you can't go intense all the way through the year, because at some point you might not burn out. You might get injured. Other things might go by the wayside, like social life or academics. And it's like you got to be able to have that balance and implement that balance in your training, because you're not just trying to build, superhumans. You're trying to build good people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Coach, we've been going for over an hour. I feel like these conversations are great, just because I feel like they just go by super quick.
Yeah.
I definitely. I was talking to a few other guys from around the state. We kind of want to do at some point kind of like a preview podcast of kind of what this year is going to look like for the high school season.
Yeah.
I know you said you kind of put some time in the Buchanan room. Looking forward at Buchanan's team this next year. How do you guys kind of stack up with Poway? I mean, it's been kind of back and forth more or less the last few years, but what do you got? I guess what are you guys looking forward to this year? How do you feel like your lineup's going to kind of build and kind of shape up? Obviously, you don't really know until it happens, but this is August, so it's kind of like those way too early previews. What do you think?
I don't. So I'm around the Buchanan program, and I don't want to speak for Coach Terapelli, on the lineup and stuff like that. And I kind of ran the freestyle program, and I'm there, open room. I'm there, as a lending hand. I'm not on staff, and I choose not to be on staff because selfishly I have an interest in just developing my boys and the people around it. But I'll tell you this, from the 2 years that I've been around the Buchanan program, I've I've never, Coach Terapelli does an amazing job of developing his team, and 2 years ago, I was around it the first time my boys were at the middle school, and I was like, man, this team's not very good. I was like, I don't know how they've won so many state titles. Like, this team's not very good. And Troy, like, all right, they look October, November, December, and then January rolls around. I was like, hey, this team is clicking. What I mean? This team's developing. They're getting better every week. What I mean? Troy's making adjustments. Troy's, seeing this, Troy's seeing that. Like, Troy is amazing at the in-season adjustments and the development, and kids from, you know, November to end of February, March, they've made huge gains in season. And he treats it like a college program, and I appreciate that, and when it's collegiate season, I'm hands off. I'm a dad, I'm a spectator, I'm in the stands, I'm not doing anything but watching practice and how he breaks down, like, all right, this is what happened the previous weekend, this is our areas of concentration, this is where we need to get better, and like doing what he does week by week and the development. I think that's why I believe Buchanan's had such a sustained success, is because Troy does an amazing job of making those adjustments and evaluating the team that he has. And, what worked last year for that team might be different for this year's team. And he just kind of sits back and waits. He's his mind's always working. And, once the season hits, like he's tough on these boys. They work their butts off, and the accountability's there, and a certain brand and style of Buchanan wrestling that he wants, he holds all of them accountable to it. So their expectation every year is to win the state title. So I'm excited to kind of see what he does with the team. And obviously we have good guys with Rockland Zinkin returning, Joe Toscano, Ashton Besmer, CJ Huerta, Paul Ruiz stepping in the lineup. They have hammers, on their team. So Leo Cantino. So their goal is to win a state title. No doubt about that. And I know that's John Myers' his goal as well. And I know he, knows he's got some state champs out there. So during the folk style season, I'm a fan, and I just love competition, and I love seeing it, and I'm excited.